When Phylicia Rashad collapsed to the floor, clutching the chain he gave her in 1988, screaming "Not my Theo," the world stopped. This isn't just the death of an actor, this is the end of a generation's innocence. And what Malcolm-Jamal Warner said in his final voicemail will stay with you forever. Don't look away, this story needs to be heard. The world stands still today. Malcolm-Jamal Warner, the actor who once played the beloved Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show, has passed away. What transpired in his final hours has left fans, colleagues, and an entire generation reeling in disbelief. He wasn't just a TV character, he was family to millions. And when Felicia Rashad, who played his on-screen mother, Claire Huxtable, learned of his death, the pain was too much. She collapsed to the floor, clutching a gold chain he gave her in 1988, crying out through her grief, "No, not my baby, not my Theo." There was no performance in that moment. No script, just raw, unfiltered heartbreak. Felicia didn't just act as his mother, she became one. On that set, she nurtured him like her own. The love was real, and when a final voicemail from Malcolm played aloud, no one in the room was prepared for the weight of his words. "Mom, if I don't wake up one day, just know you were my only light in the dark." The room shattered into silence. The former Cosby set, once filled with laughter and family banter, was now a space of unbearable grief. Makeup artists wept openly, cast and crew trembled. Even the toughest hearts cracked. Because this wasn't just about losing an actor, it was about saying goodbye to a piece of our collective memory, a symbol of childhood, of simpler times, of comfort. Clips of Theo hugging Claire are everywhere now. Short scenes that once brought joy now feel like final farewells. Around the world, people are posting a single sentence: "Please God, not our Theo." The grief cuts deep. Even those who never met him feel the loss in their bones. Because, too many of us, he was a brother, a son, a friend. Malcolm's death, reported from Costa Rica, sent a shockwave across generations. Felicia Rashad, known for her poise and maternal warmth, was utterly undone. She didn't weep quietly, she screamed, she fell. And then, as the news echoed across the globe, her whispered words became a painful anthem for all who mourned. "Not my baby, not my Theo." Just 6 words. But they cracked the internet wide open and shattered hearts everywhere. To Felicia, Malcolm wasn't just a co-star. He was her son in every way that mattered. She watched him grow up on set, guided him through fame and the storms of life few ever see. And now he was gone. She lay curled on her living room floor, gold chain in hand, the one he gave her 3 decades ago, and she clung to it like the last piece of him left behind. When producers arrived to check on her, they found her murmuring a single line again and again: "Give me back my child. Please God, give me back my baby." A nearby assistant tried to turn off the television, but Felicia stopped them, sobbing, "Don't. Let me hear his voice." She was watching reruns of The Cosby Show, one in particular, the heartfelt moment when Theo and Claire share a quiet, powerful conversation. The line from that scene rings louder now than ever before: "I love you no matter what." This time, she wasn't reciting it to a script. She was speaking to a memory. As the scene ended, someone played a recovered voicemail from Malcolm, recorded just days before he died. His voice filled the room. "Mom, if I don't wake up one day, just know you were my only light in the dark. You kept me going when I didn't even want to go on." And that was it. No one spoke. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful, it was mourning in its purest form. Even the sound engineer, a hardened veteran of the industry, had to leave the room, hands over his face. Grief spilled over from every corner. Because this wasn't just about losing a beloved actor, this was the closing of a chapter. A goodbye to childhood. A farewell to innocence. And for millions of us, it feels deeply, achingly personal. Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't just Theo. He was a symbol, a presence, a source of comfort for an entire generation. And now, that light has gone out. Outside Phylicia Rashad's home, a quiet crowd had already started to form. Strangers stood shoulder to shoulder, holding candles, some with worn-out photos of Malcolm, Felicia, and the Cosby cast from the 1980s. Adults who had grown up watching him wept openly in the driveway. One woman, trembling, clung to her child and whispered, "I named you after him." Within 30 minutes, the hashtag #NotMyTheo was trending in over 17 countries. TikTok filled with tribute videos, clips of Theo laughing, dancing, hugging his TV mom, now underscored by somber piano music. One user shared, "My parents divorced when I was 9. I didn't have a real family, but I had Theo, and now I've lost him too. Another wrote, this isn't nostalgia. This is heartbreak. It feels like I've lost someone who grew up with me. And one line, simple but gutting, seemed to echo louder than the rest. This couch will never feel the same without him. This wasn't just sadness. This was devastation. Theo Huxtable wasn't just a fictional teen. He was ours. He messed up. He owned it. He laughed through it. And in doing so, he made millions of kids feel a little less alone. Now the screen was blank. The place he once sat, that old familiar couch, felt painfully empty back inside. Phylicia Rashad had fallen into deep silence. She wasn't eating. She wasn't speaking. A nurse was called in. The studio sent grief counselors. But nothing reached her. She kept repeating the same words over and over. He was my boy. He was my heart. I didn't just play his mother. I was his mother. And everyone who ever saw them together believed her. Years earlier, during a cast reunion, Malcolm had leaned in during a quiet break and whispered to her, "You saved me. You know that, right?" She kissed his forehead and replied, "You saved me right back." Now, that sacred moment existed only as memory. Just before midnight, Felicia finally stepped outside, shielded gently by those closest to her, dressed in black, her face swollen with grief. She looked at the fans gathered around. A reporter asked gently, "Ms. Rashad, do you have anything to say about Malcolm's passing?" She didn't say much. Just 3 words. "Not my Theo." Then, she turned and walked back inside, her hand clutched tightly around a gold chain, the same one Malcolm had given her in 1988. That moment was caught on camera, and within seconds, it was everywhere. Her grief, raw, unfiltered, and real, became the face of something bigger than celebrity loss. When a woman like Phylicia Rashad breaks like that, something sacred dies with her. At the hospital, the halls were still, like the building itself was holding its breath. Felicia sat motionless in the family waiting room, her hands trembling around an old photo of Malcolm in his Cosby sweater, beaming. It was from 1987, the first day he ever called her mom off camera. She told that story through quiet tears, eyes lost in the past. Doctors tried to speak comforting words, but nothing could drown out the voice playing over and over in her mind. The last voice message he ever left her: "If anything ever happens to me, just know I was tired. But you were always my reason to hold on." When Kishia Knight Pulliam entered the room, she immediately dropped to her knees beside Felicia and began to sob. "He was our big brother," she said through tears. "He protected us. He made us laugh. Now he's just gone." A nurse stepped in softly. "Ms. Rashad, would you like to see him one last time?" Felicia hesitated. She was there, but shattered, a body without its anchor. As she entered the ICU, the sight was too much. Malcolm lay still, a ventilator quietly buzzing. A worn chain with a small cross rested on his chest, catching the sterile hospital light. Felicia fell to her knees, pressing her forehead against his, whispering, "You said I was your light. But Theo, you were mine." The medical staff gave her the room. Even the cameras, usually so eager to catch every moment, were turned off. This wasn't for public view. This was grief in its purest, most private form. That same night, a previously unseen video surfaced online, footage from a small, private dinner held just weeks before, a reunion of the Cosby family. In it, Malcolm stands up, glass raised, and smiles. "To the woman who taught me to be gentle, kind, and strong. My TV mom. My real-life guardian angel. I love you." The clip spread like wildfire. Comment sections flooded with messages. "I'm in tears. This is too much." She wasn't acting, she truly loved him. Because we all felt it. The bond between Theo and Claire wasn't just television. It was real. It mattered. More details from inside the hospital began to surface. A staff member, speaking anonymously, said Malcolm had been asking for Felicia in his final moments. Even while sedated, her name kept leaving his lips. "Mom, Mom, is she here yet?" And still, the heartbreak grew. Later that evening, Debbie Allen, Felicia's sister, and a legend in her own right, arrived at the hospital. She found Felicia curled in a chair, hollowed by loss. She could barely move. She wasn't speaking. "I've never seen her like this," Debbie said later. "It's like something inside her just broke." While funeral preparations quietly began, one final, deeply personal request was made. Felicia asked that Malcolm be buried with the gold chain he gave her in 1988. The same one he had asked to see just days before he passed. On it were engraved initials, barely visible now but sacred all the same, MJW plus FR. It was his quiet way of saying, "I never forgot." A close family friend revealed something deeply personal. Phylicia Rashad spent hours by Malcolm's side after he passed, reading through old letters he had written to her during his early days on The Cosby Show. One of them said simply, "You believed in me when I didn't know how to believe in myself. I owe every good part of me to you." Others scribbled notes that read, "Thank you, Theo, for making us laugh, cry, and grow. Claire Huxtable, we cry with you." This isn't just a television loss, it's family. Across the country, networks began re-airing old Cosby Show episodes as tribute, but they didn't feel the same. Every hug between Malcolm and Felicia, every awkward teenage moment, every scene where Theo was comforted or scolded, suddenly carried the weight of finality. It wasn't nostalgia anymore, it was mourning. TMZ released never-before-seen footage from behind the scenes. In one clip, Felicia gently leans in after a difficult shoot and whispers, "You're doing great, baby. I'm proud of you." That video alone pulled in millions of views. Because the grief wasn't just for the man, it was for the memory of a time, a feeling, a place we all thought would always be safe. Suddenly, childhood felt further away. Then came a chilling post from a former show writer. He shared a memory. "Malcolm once told me, if I ever die young, just know I wasn't running away. I was just tired of hiding the weight." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. That single line, "tired of hiding the weight," spread like wildfire. It became a mantra among fans, mental health advocates, even celebrities. The hashtag #NotMyTheo surged to the top of every platform, and at the center of this heartbreaking storm stood Phylicia Rashad, the pillar of strength on screen, now visibly shattered. As the days passed, part 2 of this tragedy began to unfold. Felicia requested a private memorial, no cameras, no press. Just the people who had truly known and loved Malcolm beyond the screen. The chapel was modest, dim, intimate. Friends, family, castmates, and even longtime crew members flew in from all corners of the country. There were old camera operators, makeup artists, lighting techs, all unable to process the silence that now lived where Malcolm's voice once did. Sabrina Lebov clutched a photo of the two of them on set in 1985. Kishia Knight-Pulliam cried quietly in the corner. There was no show to perform anymore. No audience to entertain, only grief. Then Felicia stepped forward, her hands shaking as she held a letter Malcolm had written to her in 2014. She struggled to read it out loud. "Mom, if this life ever gets too heavy for me, I just want you to know, you were my anchor. Even when I couldn't breathe, your words reminded me I was still alive." She stopped, overwhelmed, then looked up and asked aloud, voice cracking, "Why didn't I see it? Why didn't I stop him?" The room went silent. Finally, a voice from the back replied, soft and honest, "Because he was too good at hiding it, just like he was good at acting." That was the moment the room broke. The grief deepened, this time, mingled with guilt. Because now, it wasn't just about losing him, it was about the weight he'd carried. The pain he had masked for years. And no one had seen it. Then, they played his final voicemail. The one he left just hours before he disappeared. His voice was steady, but full of sorrow. "To everyone who ever believed in Theo, thank you. But the truth is, I never knew how to be okay. Not truly. Not fully. I hope one day people will understand. Sometimes the ones who smile the most are screaming the loudest inside." By the time the message ended, Felicia was on her knees again, sobbing, "Please come back, please. I didn't get to say goodbye." The rest of the cast gathered around her in a circle, broken, but holding each other like a family trying to stay whole, one last time. The next day, networks announced they were pulling Cosby Show reruns in honor of the morning cast. But fans weren't ready to let go. Social media filled with memories, bloopers, behind-the-scenes clips, and interviews where Malcolm talked about the pressure of being perfect. Suddenly, the charm in those interviews felt like coded cries for help. A resurfaced interview from 2007 became the focal point. In it, Malcolm said, "I've spent my whole life playing the perfect son, the funny one, the good one, but sometimes I wish people knew how hard it was to carry that smile." It had gone unnoticed before. Now it was printed on candles, murals, and tribute posts. Felicia even reposted it, with a heartbreaking caption, "He was smiling. I just wish I had looked harder." Within 48 hours, crowds gathered outside the old Cosby Show studio in Brooklyn. People left teddy bears, letters, and DVD box sets. Someone had written in chalk on the pavement, "Theo was all of us. We grew up with him. And now, a part of us is gone." Then came the message that silenced even the loudest voices on the internet, a tweet from Bill Cosby himself. From wherever he was, he wrote, "I may be locked away, but hearing about Malcolm's death, I haven't cried this hard in decades. He was the best of us. The only one who never turned bitter. And now he's gone." No matter where people stood on Cosby himself, the weight of those words landed hard. It reminded the world just how strong the bonds were between those castmates, a family forged, not just on camera, but through years of shared history. When the news broke that Malcolm's ashes would be scattered off the coast of Costa Rica, the same coastline where he was found, fans from all over began planning a candlelight vigil. They didn't care if they'd ever seen a single episode of The Cosby Show. This was no longer about a sitcom. It was about a man, a real man who had given the world joy while carrying pain no one ever saw. And on the night of July 28, something happened that no one could have written into a script. As Felicia stepped to the edge of the waves, flower in hand, the crowd holding their breath behind her, a child broke free and ran toward her. He wrapped his arms around her waist. He looked so much like a young Theo that it stopped time. With tear-filled eyes, the boy whispered, "He made me believe I was smart, that I mattered." That was it. No more words were needed. In that single sentence, everything Malcolm had lived for came into focus. All the years, the scenes, the jokes, the quiet weight he carried, it wasn't just acting. He was giving something of himself, piece by piece. And in the end, he gave so much. There was nothing left. As the emotional credits of this tragedy rolled through millions of hearts, one truth became undeniable. Malcolm-Jamal Warner didn't just play Theo. He was Theo. And Theo, somehow, was all of us. Rest easy, Malcolm. We didn't know then, but now we do, and we'll never forget. People often say the good ones leave too soon. But losing Malcolm felt deeper. It was as if a piece of our own childhood, our sense of safety, our after-school sanctuary, had disappeared. This wasn't just a passing. This was a soul screaming silently, finally being heard. He was the smile in our living rooms, the calm voice in our chaos, the brother so many of us wished we had. But behind that smile, behind the punchlines, behind the fame, was a man weighed down by invisible battles, and now, that silence has cracked the world open. So if this story stirred something deep within you, if your chest tightened hearing his final voicemail, if a lump caught in your throat when Felicia's voice cracked, don't just scroll away. Don't let this moment vanish like another post in a feed. Let it linger. Let it remind you of something bigger. Let it wake something up inside you. Because someone out there, maybe a friend you've known for years, maybe a sibling who never asks for help, maybe the coworker who always jokes around, maybe even you, is wearing the same smile Malcolm wore. The smile that says everything's fine while hiding the ache that says I can't keep going like this. That kind of pain is silent, disguised as laughter, masked by strength, and often invisible until it's too late. Check on your strong friends. The ones who carry everyone else's burdens but never mention their own. The ones who crack jokes when they're crumbling inside. The ones who seem like they've got it all together because sometimes, they're the ones falling apart. The most quietly. Strength doesn't mean immunity to suffering. And smiles can be armor, not signs of peace. Don't wait for people to break. Reach out before they do. Send the message. Make the call. Say the words they might not even realize they need to hear. Because your presence, your care, your simple checking in that could be the thread that keeps someone going just one more day. And if Malcolm ever meant something to you, if you ever sat on a couch watching Theo fumble through life, laugh through lessons, or just show up as his imperfect, lovable self, then say that, speak that truth. Share that story. Because his wasn't just a fictional role. It was a real gift. His character gave us comfort. His presence gave us safety. His journey helped so many of us feel seen when we felt small, awkward, or unseen ourselves. Don't let that kind of light disappear unnoticed. Post his photo, share the clip. Tell people why he mattered. Let the world hear the echo of his voice in the scenes we replay in our heads. Let them know that his kindness, his humor, his vulnerability, it left a mark. Not just on screens, but on hearts. Let this be more than a eulogy. Let it be a conversation, a healing, a promise, because there are others right now, walking around, In silence, doing exactly what Malcolm did, making everyone else feel good while quietly fading in their own shadows. And maybe, just maybe, if enough of us learn from this pain, it won't have to happen again. Let Malcolm's story remind us that we don't always know who's struggling, that grief is not always loud, that even joybringers need someone to bring them light to. So if you've ever felt broken but hid it well, if you've ever smiled while quietly falling apart, no, you're not alone. There are people who care, people who would rather hear your messy truth than lose you to silence. And if you loved Malcolm, not the actor, not just Theo, but the man, keep him alive by being what he needed. Be the person who listens closer, who hugs tighter, who asks twice if someone says, "I'm fine." Because we didn't know. Not really, but now we do. And we will never look at his smile the same way again. Rest in peace, Malcolm. Thank you for every moment you gave us, and for reminding the world that the loudest cries can hide behind the quietest faces. We see you now, and we won't forget. Ever.